the inheritor of stolen goods, stolen information. They need to be held account to how they use it, how they manipulate it, and how they misinform the American people, the world about these instances. But once it was stolen, we've tried as best we can to figure out what all he does have and to be able to respond to it as it comes out. But we're really at the mercy of the Guardian as to when they roll these particular revelations out and how they spin those revelations in their original documents that come out, because most instances it's been an inaccurate portrayal of what that data is that they've actually got in receipt of the stolen information.
Do you and the intelligence committees know exactly what Edward Snowden has?
No. We try to find out, but there could be some stuff out there that he got that we are not aware of.
You have an idea, mostly, of what he was able to...
We think mostly, but in broad instances. But again, we do not know everything. I don't know everything that, and I've been briefed on everything that he might have gotten. And we've asked that question, and they're trying to find it.
They still have not.
A tough deal.
They still cannot answer that question.
Not definitive. I mean, no one could say this is all of it. There's absolutely nothing else that he could have gotten, and no one can answer that question.
How is that not possible? How is it
There's lots of it, and he was doing his mischief over a long period of time.
So there's a lot more to come.
I have no idea. We'll just have to see what the Guardian decides, and their infinite wisdom.
Kevin Denver says this on Twitter: are these domestic spying programs worth obvious alienation of the people?
Well, I don't know that the domestic spying programs. You had a caller on earlier that talked about the Boston bombers and why we didn't catch them. We didn't catch them because we don't mine that metadata for anything. We've got to have a reasonably articulable suspicion on something before we can query that data. And we didn't have those kind of suspicions. Maybe we should have had those suspicions about these two brothers who killed all those folks in Boston, but we didn't. And so, consequently, we weren't mining that data for that kind of information. So, it's only investigative work when we can. It's only investigated. It's only queried when we have a reasonably articulable suspicion, and then the law enforcement kicks in, and the judiciary kicks in, all those kind of things. So, I don't know that I would use the word spying. It is a tough sell right now. I understand that. I get to work with Keith Alexander, and I understand the kind of fella he is, the man he is, and how jealously he guards Americans' privacy, and how he clearly understands the powerful tools that he gets to oversee, and how those ought to be restrained and not used, and is good at that. Conveying that to the folks back home is difficult because, as I said earlier in the conversation, there's a real distrust for all of government. There's a distrust for Congress. There's a distrust of this president by an awful lot of folks, as you heard a couple of your callers say. So it's a tough uphill battle. We just have to continue to talk about what we are doing, what we're not doing, and try to get that message out. Hence the public session this afternoon with Keith Alexander and General Clapper.
And on that point, what do you make of General Alexander taking to YouTube, doing a 30-minute interview with a Pentagon blogger and then posting it on YouTube? It didn't get a lot of media attention.
Well, General Alexander is trying to use every tool he can. He understands the importance of what we do. He also understands the limitations we place on it and that we're not violating those limitations. And he wants to get that message out. And quite frankly, he's just innovative in using that particular model, having that out there so that anyone, anytime, anywhere, not 24 hours a day, can go to that, watch it themselves, try to make their own decision as to what they think of General Alexander and his openness and straightforwardness, which I found him constantly to be, for themselves. It gives them a kind of an intimate look at what he does and how he thinks and those kind of things. So I think it's great that he did it, and I hope it gets plenty of attention and a lot of hits, as they say on his YouTube video.
We showed a little bit of it earlier in our first 45 minutes. We'll show a little bit later on here on the Washington Journal as well. But Doug Shelby tweets in what you've been talking about, Congressman. The government has lost the trust of the people and are no longer constrained by its enumerated powers. Let's hear from Wendy. She's in Linwood, Washington, Republican caller. Hi, Wendy.
Hi. I've never called here before, and I'm in the hospital watching this in the middle of the night. I am an American citizen. I'm a disabled healthcare worker for cancer patients. I'm watching all of this, and I am no longer officially a Democrat. You guys this is insane. This intelligence, this surveillance, everything that's going on, the president not knowing what's going on in our own country, and our people losing their insurance and schooling, and I'm appalled.
Congressman?
Well, she brings up a lot of questions, a lot of issues, and it's contributed to this general attitude toward government, toward Congress, toward the White House, and everything else that frustrated. They don't see it working the way they want it to. They blame Congress, and we are to blame in a sense, but I'm reflective of the folks who live in District 11. My attitudes toward whether it's tax increases or this Unaffordable Care Act, as my constituents like to call it, and so I'm trying to represent them here in D.C. There's some similarly heartfelt decisions on the other side of the aisle that are just as strongly held. And consequently, we have this divided government that the folks elected in last November, and divided government does not work well unless you have leadership. You can look at divided government from the Reagan era, where the Democrats control both houses of Congress, and then the Republicans control the White House, and yet some really important things got done because the president led in that arena. And this is just a divided government. I don't sense leadership out of the president, out of the White House, and consequently you get this malaise that's going on. We appear to be rudderless. We appear to be adrift as a country, and it's fomenting into this overall distrust from the American people. And I get it. And I'm back home trying to do town halls, and I'll do a telephone town hall tonight to try to buck up the attitude of folks toward what's going on here in D.C. But it's easy to get discouraged, and clearly this caller is very discouraged about what she sees going on or not going on in our country.
You're serving your 5th term. How long have you served on the Intelligence Committee?
This is my 3rd term so I'm finishing my 5th year on the Intelligence Committee.
Mike Conaway is our guest, Republican of Texas. Liz, you're next in Maryland, Republican caller.
Yes, good morning. I just would like to thank you and Congressman Justin Amash. I was at the stop watching this rally on Saturday over the Capitol, and I have an issue with the way they're turning the local and state governments into police states. They are intruding into people's personal and business affairs, using this crazy aerial surveillance to track people's movements, and none of this has anything to do with terrorism. It's just used for the sole purpose to harass and intimidate and suppress freedom of speech. And I think that these programs should be defunded immediately because it's basically a misuse and abuse of taxpayers' funding.
Okay, so Liz, you agree with Congressman Justin Amash's efforts earlier this year to defund the NSA surveillance programs?
Definitely. The bill that they have now with in conjunction with Congressman Conyers and I think it's Sensenbrenner.
Right.
Yes, definitely. They have a new bill, and we should all support it. We need to get rid of all this spying because it's not doing anything to stop the real people that are causing the domestic terrorism.
Okay. All right, Liz. Well, Congressman, you told us earlier you disagree with the legislation. Explain to Liz and others why you would oppose those efforts.
Well, we'll be less safe, and there will be folks will die if we don't do a good job. You heard Keith Alexander say earlier on your clip that you showed that we've stopped some 54 events around the world, 13 here in the United States, 41 overseas. Those events would have resulted in people dying. And that's something I don't want to have happen. And so, part of my job is to do the oversight and the work with the system to make sure that our privacies are not being abused, and that if they are, that the folks are held to account for that. So I understand the caller's overall disdain for what's going on. She mentioned drones and other things that the police, state and local groups are going. That has absolutely nothing to do with NSA. We have new tools to try to prevent crime here in the United States, and so each local jurisdiction, each state gets to decide for themselves whether or not they think that's a good idea, and that's where those decisions ought to be made. But her message is there between what she doesn't like and the NSA programs. But the NSA programs have got to be watched like a hawk. We have good processes in place. You mentioned earlier there was one front page issue that talked about some vaguely report to the FISA courts. But nothing could be further from the truth. FISA courts are very actively involved in the most minute details of everything that's going on with respect to this program. You have congressional oversight, and you have the executive branch oversight as well. Our military has all kinds of weapons that used improperly would be outrageous. And we trust those guys to not do that. We have tools at the NSA that if they were used improperly, it would be outrageous. And we've got to maintain close oversight of that as well. But I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater.